Welcome. I'm Jen Farmer, CEO of the Friedreich Ataxia Research Alliance, and I'm joined by my colleague Kellen Madden today to host and help moderate a webinar for Larimar Therapeutics. Dr. Rusty Clayton is the Chief Medical Officer at Larimar Therapeutics, and he's going to be sharing with us an update on the Nomlabofusp program and spend some time giving us an overview of a study that is starting very shortly. That would be a new clinical trial for the Nomlabofusp program. I would encourage folks to submit questions during the webinar in the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of your screen. Try and use the Q&A box and not the chat. It's just easier for us to monitor the Q&A. And at the end of Dr. Clayton's presentation, Kellen and I will share your questions during a Q&A period. So with that, I am going to turn the webinar over to Dr. Clayton.
Thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to provide an update on the Nomlabofusp clinical development program and talk about our future studies. As you may know, Larimar Therapeutics is developing Nomlabofusp, which we used to call CTI-1601, as a potential treatment for adults and children with Friedreich's ataxia. Nomlabofusp contains a protein that has three parts: frataxin, a mitochondrial targeting sequence, or MTS, and a cell-penetrating peptide, also referred to on the slide as a CPP. Frataxin is a protein that is deficient in people living with Friedreich's ataxia. We all make frataxin in our cells, but people with Friedreich's ataxia make a lot less, on average about 20 to 30% of what we would find in somebody with two normal chromosomes. The mitochondrial targeting sequence is made by the cell with the frataxin and is attached to the frataxin. So they come as you see on the left-hand side, they come as a two peptide unit. As the name suggests, the mitochondrial targeting sequence guides the frataxin through the cell to the mitochondria and gets it inside the mitochondria so the frataxin can do what it needs to do. The cell-penetrating peptide, as you see on the right-hand side of your slide, is a small piece that Larimar attaches to the mitochondrial targeting sequence end where the Nomlabofusp is made. This cell-penetrating peptide gets the frataxin into the cell after it is injected. So the way this all works is that Nomlabofusp is injected under the skin. From there, it gets into the bloodstream and goes all over the body. The cell-penetrating peptide gets the protein into the cells, and the mitochondrial targeting sequence gets the protein into the mitochondria. Once inside the mitochondria, an enzyme called the mitochondrial processing peptidase snips the frataxin from the mitochondrial targeting sequence, and the frataxin is then free inside the mitochondria to do its work. The frataxin molecule is made up of the identical amino acids that are in the frataxin that the body makes. Currently, there are no treatment options that address the core deficit of Friedreich's ataxia, namely low levels of frataxin. Nomlabofusp represents the first potential therapy designed to increase frataxin levels in patients with Friedreich's ataxia. Please keep in mind that Nomlabofusp is an investigational product and is not approved for use to treat any condition. So far, Larimar has completed 2 phase 1 studies and 1 phase 2 study in adults with Friedreich's ataxia. Phase 1 studies are usually short studies that evaluate safety over a range of doses and also are used to find out how much drug is in the bloodstream after 1 or several doses are given. This concentration, or this how much drug is in the bloodstream, this is called pharmacokinetics, or PK for short. Phase 2 studies are usually longer than phase 1 studies and are used to continue to evaluate the safety and pick the best dose or doses. Phase 2 studies start to measure the effectiveness of the drug, either by measuring changes in biomarkers, things that can be measured in a laboratory or with other tests, or by measuring changes in symptoms. There are also phase 3 studies. These are large studies that are designed to definitively demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of a drug. After the completion of the phase 1 studies in adults, Larimar conducted a phase 2 study to evaluate Nomlabofusp in adults with Friedreich's ataxia. We evaluated 2 doses, a 25 milligram and a 50 milligram dose, given daily for 14 days, followed by every other day dosing for 14 days. In addition to evaluating safety and PK, Larimar also measured frataxin levels in cells taken from inside the mouth and skin cells. In both cell types, we observed increases in frataxin levels after 14 days of daily dosing. As shown here, bigger increases in frataxin levels were observed at the higher 50 milligram doses. At the beginning of the year, Larimar started an open-label extension study, and the patients who completed their participation in the completed studies were invited to participate in this open-label extension study. The first patient who enrolled in the study started receiving daily doses of Nomlabofusp in March of this year. Since then, we have continued to enroll patients into the study. All of the people participating in this study are receiving Nomlabofusp. There is no placebo group in this particular study. In the phase 2 study, we are collecting safety and PK data, and we are also evaluating frataxin levels and clinical measures, such as the FARAs and the 9-hole peg test. The people in the study are allowed to be taking omavaloxolone as part of their medication plan, but there are some conditions around this. To start Nomlabofusp, they need to be taking omavaloxolone for at least 6 months. If any participants are not taking omavaloxolone when they begin the study, but they want to start omavaloxolone, they may have to wait to start omavaloxolone until they have been taking Nomlabofusp for at least 6 months. So far, clinical studies in Nomlabofusp have only involved adults with Friedreich's ataxia. Larimar believes it's important to develop a treatment for children with Friedreich's ataxia, and it has always been Larimar's intention to develop Nomlabofusp for both children and adults with Friedreich's ataxia. I'm excited to announce that we are about to start enrollment in a first study of Nomlabofusp in children with Friedreich's ataxia. This study is a phase 1 study that will evaluate safety and PK in adolescents and children with Friedreich's ataxia, and we hope to start recruiting this week. Just like the adult studies, participants who complete this study will be eligible to screen for the open-label extension study. The screening for the open-label extension study will start after the last participant completes the study. Here are the details. The study will be conducted at a single center. This clinical research unit is called Uncommon Cures, and it's located in Chevy Chase, Maryland. Larimar selected Uncommon Cures as the site for this study because they specialize in clinical research in children living with rare diseases, and the doctors and staff there are pediatric specialists. In case you don't know, Chevy Chase, Maryland is not far from Washington, D.C. Let's talk about the study design. There are 2 groups, which we're going to call cohorts in the study. Cohort 1 will be made up of adolescents 12 to 17 years of age with Friedreich's ataxia, and cohort 2 will be made up of children 2 to 11 years of age with Friedreich's ataxia. There will be about 12 to 15 participants in each cohort. To be eligible for the study, potential participants must have a genetically confirmed diagnosis of Friedreich's ataxia. They must be able to sit up with support on 2 sides and be able to travel a distance of 25 feet with or without a wheelchair or other assistive device. Participants cannot have participated in any gene therapy trials. In addition, anyone who has taken any experimental treatments or has taken erythropoietin, etravirine, or gamma interferon for 90 days prior to study entry, as well as anyone who is currently taking amiodarone, is not allowed to participate. Since this is a phase 1 study, adolescents who are 16 or 17 years old and are taking omaveloxolone will not be allowed to participate. Vaccines are not allowed for 3 days before the start of treatment or for 3 days after finishing treatment. Other medications are permitted, but the dose of these medications need to be the same for 4 weeks prior to the start of the study. The study starts off with a screening period that can last up to 35 days. During this screening, Uncommon Cures will contact the participant's family and ask some initial questions to make sure that the potential participants meet certain inclusion criteria. If that goes well, a visiting nurse will come to the participant's home, measure vital signs, and get some blood samples to make sure there are no unknown health problems that may affect study participation. Once all that information is reviewed, arrangements will be made for the participant and a family member or caregiver to travel to Chevy Chase, Maryland, and be put up in a hotel close to Uncommon Cures. All travel and hotel costs will be covered by Larimar. For 1 or 2 days before the dosing started, the last screening test will be done, including an electrocardiogram and an echocardiogram. Once all of these screening procedures are done, participants will be randomized to receive either Nomlabofusp or placebo. The randomization is 2 to 1. Meaning 2 out of 3 participants will receive Nomlabofusp, and 1 out of 3 will get placebo during the treatment phase of the study. The study is double-blinded, meaning that neither the participant nor the study staff will know who is getting Nomlabofusp and who is getting placebo. All participants will get an injection every morning for 7 days at the study site. On the first and last day of the treatment period, blood samples will be drawn over 8 hours to evaluate PK. Cell samples taken from the inside of the mouth will also be collected. That's what Larimar uses to measure frataxin levels. On other days, the participant needs to stay at the study site for 4 hours after receiving the injection. At the end of the day, the participants can return to the hotel. By the way, there will be a number to call if the participant has any problems while they are not at the study site. After the 7th day of dosing, there will be some testing. Then the participants and caregivers can go home. A nurse will visit their home 7 days and 30 days after the last dose is given to check on the participant and get some blood samples. And then after that 30-day visit, the study participation is over. The adolescent cohort 1 will be completed first, and then the child cohort 2 will start after Larimar and an independent data monitoring committee get a chance to review the safety and PK data from cohort 1. As I mentioned before, all participants who complete the study will be eligible to screen for the open label extension study. We plan to start screening for the open label extension study in adolescents after the last participant in cohort 1 completes the study. For more information or to sign up for the study, you can call 240-858-4938 or 240-858-4912 or email l-fa@uncommoncures.com. Before we answer any questions, let's spend a few minutes talking about the Nomlabofusp phase 3 study that is planned to start in the first half of next year. This will be a big study conducted not just in the US, but also in Europe, the UK, and Australia. The study will be open to adults, adolescents, and children with Friedreich's ataxia. Larimar will be sharing more information about this study next year. So to summarize, the Nomlabofusp open label extension is ongoing and enrolling. The first Nomlabofusp clinical study in adolescents and children with Friedreich's ataxia is starting later this week. And next year, Larimar will be starting a global phase 3 study. Again, our thanks to FARA for allowing us to share this information with you.